Welcome to today's session from Bhagavad Gita as it is, by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Srila Prabhupada. We are discussing from chapter 18, the perfection of renunciation, and we are going to cover the texts 51 to 60 today. Buddhya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Text 51 to 53. Buddhya Vishuddhaya Yukto Dhrityatmanam Niyamaya Cha Shabdadin Vishayam Styaktva Ragadvesho Vidusya Cha. 52. Vivikta Sevi Lagvashi Yat Vakya Kaya Manasah Dhyana Yoga Paro Nityam Vairagyam Samupashritah. 53. Ahankaram Balam Darpam Kamam Krodham Parigraham Vimuchya Nirmamah Shanto Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. Translations of verses 51 to 53. They were all together. Being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred, one who lives in a secluded place, who eats little, who controls his body, mind and power of speech, who is always in trance and who is detached, free from false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, and acceptance of material things, free from false proprietorship and peaceful, such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. Verse 54. Brahma bhutah prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param. One who is thus transcendentally situated at once realizes the supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state, he attains pure devotional service unto me. Verse 55. Bhaktya mama abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvatah tato mam tatvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service, and when one is in full consciousness of me, by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Verse 56. Sarva karmarnyapi sada kurvano mad vyapashrayah mat prasada davapnoti shashvatam padamavyayam. Though engaged in all kinds of activities, my pure devotee under my protection reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. Verse 57. Chetasa sarva karmani mayi sanyasya matparah buddhi yogam upashritya machittah satatam bhava. In all activities, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. Verse 58. Machitta sarva durgani mat prasadat tarishyasi ath chetav mahankaran ran shroyasi vinakshasi vingyashyasi. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If you, however, do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Verse 59. Yad ahamkaram ashritya nayutasya iti manyase mithyaish vyavasayaste prakritistvam niyokshati. If you do not act according to my direction and do not fight, then you will be falsely directed. By your nature, you will have to engage in warfare. Verse 60, Swabhavajan Jena Kaunteya Nibaddha Svena Karmana Kartum Nechasi Yanmohat Karishyasya Vashopi Tat. Under illusion, you are now declining to act according to my direction, but compelled by the work born of your own nature, you will act all the same, O son of Kunti. In verse 50, Bhagwan is saying to Arjun, O son of Kunti, learn from me how one who has achieved the perfection can attain to the supreme perfectional stage, Brahman, the stage of highest knowledge, and by acting in that way, I shall now summarize. So Lord is describing to Arjun that how the highest stage of perfection can be achieved just by being engaged in your own occupational duty, which has been allotted to you, and by doing that duty for the Lord, by simply renouncing the results of your work for the satisfaction of Bhagwan. So the actual perfection of knowledge is to get the pure Krishna consciousness. Now the verses 51 to 53 will tell us that. So we may not notice that out of our chanting and services, etc., we are every day actually growing stronger. We can go stronger than all the anarthas, the acts we shouldn't be doing. They'll be pushing against us, but by doing the service of the Lord and by chanting and doing various services, we will be progressing. So Bhagwan is telling us in 51 to 53 that by purifying the intelligence, controlling the mind with lot of determination, giving up sense gratification, freeing yourself from attachment, hatred, and by getting detached from your false ego, false strength, false pride, lust, anger, acceptance of material things, controlling your body, mind, and speech. Such person can elevate themselves to the position of Brahman, which is the self-realization. So basically you have to keep yourself in mode of goodness and just try to control not your diet. Also, don't eat too much, don't eat too little, and also offer everything you're doing to Lord. Basically, that is what is going to take you to the Brahmabhut stage of the self-realization, and freeing yourself from the material conception is the only thing which is going to make you peaceful. So in chapter 2 verse 70, it was said, Apuryamanam achala pratishtham samudram apah pravishanti yadvat tadvat kama yam pravishanti sarve sashantim apnoti na kama kami. A person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but is always still, can only achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. Verse 54. The one who is transcendentally situated at once realizes the Supreme Brahman and becomes fully joyful. He never laments nor desires to have anything. He is equally disposed toward every living entity. In that state of mind, they attain the pure devotional service of Lord. Lord says that to Arjun in verse 54. So the Brahma Bhuta word is used in this verse, which means being one with the Absolute. So being engaged in pure devotional service, one can achieve this state, and this is the one which is going to get us out of the misery of this material world. Living entity is part and parcel of Lord, so therefore eternal servant of the Lord, and for a materially infected person, the world might be full of miseries, but for a person who is a devotee who is serving Lord, this world can be just like Vaikuntha, because he's happily serving the Lord in this world as well. And Lord Chaitanya also confirms that this can be achieved by doing the pure devotional service, even in Kali Yuga. Verse 55, Bhagavan says, one can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service, and when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Prabhupada reminds us in the purport that in chapter 7, verse 25, Naham Prakash Sarvasya, Bhagavan says that I am not revealed to everyone, not just by very diligent scholarly study or by mental speculation, but by a Krishna conscious devotee doing his devotional services. Material education is only going to help us achieve the material happiness, but for the eternal happiness, we need to serve the Lord. So after the achieving of the Brahma Bhuta, or the stage of the freedom from material conception, then hearing begins about the pastimes of the Lord, and then Bhagavatam also tells us the same thing, that lust, desire will start diminishing from the heart of a devotee as more and more attachment to the Lord will come, and that will be like freedom from the material contamination as well. So actual liberation is getting free from misconceptions of life. So whatever level your sadhana is, you can still practice bhakti yoga, that is doing the devotional service to the Lord. So in verse 56, Bhagavan says, though engaged in all kinds of activities, my pure devotee under my protection reaches the eternal and imperishable abode by my grace. So in this verse, mat vyapashraya word is used, which means under the protection of the Supreme Lord. So to get the protection of the Supreme Lord, to be free from material contamination, we have to be under the direction of the Lord or his representative, that is a spiritual master. There is no time limit for a pure devotee. Prabhupada says 24 hours a day, 100% that devotee can be engaged in the Krishna conscious service of the Lord, despite of the difficulties and and the situation he or she is situated in this life. Verse 57, Bhagavan says, all the activities depend on me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. So Bhagavan is saying that under the guidance of Lord, when you're doing the work, then the life will be sublime. Because when you're acting under God's guidance, you won't be affected by the profit or the loss. Mat Paraha indicates in this verse that one has no goal in life except acting in Krishna consciousness to serve the Lord Krishna. So one has to act according to the order of the Lord. The order of the Lord will come through the disciplic succession, through your spiritual master, and that should be taken as the prime duty. Verse 58, Bhagavan says that if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. So devotee and non-devotee, our nature, that is actually controlling us in our bhakti. So Krishna conscious person is not very anxious about executing the duties of his existence. Now somebody might say, what is the freedom? What is the great freedom from all anxiety? But one who thinks of Lord Krishna as their friend, they always look after the comfort of their friend, they give themselves to their friend and devotedly serve the friend. Prabhupada is telling in the purport, and doesn't get easily carried away by the bodily concept of life or the false ego. So conditioned souls doesn't know what has to be done and what not has to be done. But when you become conscious of Krishna, then only you become aware of the do's and don'ts in bhakti. In verse 59, Bhagavan says that if you do not act according to my direction and do not fight, then you will be falsely directed. By your nature, you will have to be engaged in warfare. Arjuna came from the line of the warriors, so he was Kshatriya and his duty was to fight. But his false ego was stopping him to kill his family members, his teachers, his friends, because he did not want the bad reactions of that act and on the battlefield. But he was thinking himself as the master of his own actions. He was not he was momentarily forgetting that Lord was present there and Lord was instructing him to carry on this duty. And this is how is the forgetfulness of each one of us. We have forgotten the reason why we have been put into this world, to act consciously in Krishna consciousness. So one should act without any fear to execute or to act the orders of the Supreme Lord, and that will keep one safe under all circumstances. Verse 60, Bhagavan says that under the illusion you are now declining to act according to my direction, but compelled by the work born of your own nature, you will act all the same, O son of Kunti. So Arjuna is being told in verse 60 by Bhagavan that one who refuses to act under the direction of the Lord will be compelled to act by the modes of nature anyway, wherever that person is. So everyone is under the strict spell of the modes of nature and is forced to act according to that. But anyone who by free will wants to act under the directions of the Lord becomes happy, becomes glorious. So now, since verse 56, I think Bhagwan has been telling Arjun about the Bhakti Yoga. We will continue with this tomorrow. Hari Om Tat Sat. Thanks for joining. Hare Krishna.